Hello, dear friends. I'm thrilled to share with you a technique and a framework that I think is extremely beneficial. If you've worked with me before or have seen my work elsewhere, you may have run across this. And this is what I call the Get Real method. And REAL is an acronym. So REAL stands for recognize, elevate, accept, and learn. So why would we use this and when would we use this? So the examples that come up in our life of things that occur to us, maybe by a person or maybe by society or something that we see outside of ourselves that causes a triggered reaction for us emotionally, oftentimes something we don't have any control over or feels like we have no control over, is a part of being a human being. And oftentimes we can look back at those moments and say, oh, I wish I had reacted a different way. And so this tool allows us to go back in time and work with anything that we've felt that way in the past. We can also use it in real time, and we can also use this in future projections. So if we have a future experience that is coming up that we may want to experience in a new way, we can use this. So a good example of real time. So we'll talk about something that's happening in the present moment. You may come home after a long day, come home, open the door, and your significant other, family members, parents, children, siblings, roommates may have a bone to pick with you or something that they're bringing to your attention right away, and you're just feeling overwhelmed because your day was so big already. And so you may snip at them. That's some people's reaction. Some people may just kind of cower away from it and not want to deal with it right away. There are many different ways of us kind of coping with these experiences because they feel a little bit too much. Now, if this is to happen, and I was to walk through the door and I came home and I saw you there, you're my partner, and you said, I just really need to have a talk with you right now about blah, 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 blah. I could react right away, or I can take a moment and use the Get Real method. So I recognize that I'm about to have a triggered experience. So it might be an emotion that's coming up with me, or I may just feel low energy, so I know I can't quite hang with what's going on right now. The next thing I do is I tune into my higher self and elevate. So what would the best version of myself do in this situation? Right? Okay, elevate. So what would the best version of myself do? Right? Then we accept. We accept that we may be triggered. We accept that we may have even said something already that doesn't work, right? We may be handling this situation not very well, but we're recognizing in the moment that this is not going the way we want. And so we learn from what we've done, and we can pause and say, oh, you know what? Hold on a moment. I'm sorry, I just came in from a long day. Can you ask me that again? I didn't respond in the way I think is most appropriate. Now, I know that can feel like a lot in real time, right? To have that level of self-awareness and be able to pull all that together while being triggered emotionally. This is the cool part about this. Start using this practice on things in the past and running it through your mind's eye and running it towards future events, and you'll get faster and faster at it so that you can use it in real time. The other element of this, of course, is that I'm asking you in this made-up scenario to give me a second to readjust. And that may not be feasible all the time with an individual you're working with or with a situation. And in that case, we can still use this process later or when we have a moment to slow down. So the key part of this is just recognizing it as a tool and then running through this tool on occasion. This might be something that's good at the end of the day if you had some interactions that you weren't all that thrilled about the way that you showed up, or a future interaction the next day. So let's take, for example, if we're looking towards the next day and you're dreading a conversation with your boss. Your boss feels like they're just always on top of you and giving you too much work, and it feels like you're not being heard or seen by them. So you can visualize yourself moving into this situation, your boss coming in, and then you can recognize that I'm shutting down when my boss comes around. Elevate. What would I prefer to do? What would be the highest version of myself response to this. I'd look my boss in the eye and say, I've got this. Or I'd look my boss in the eye and say, hey, can I have a meeting with you later about the workload that I have going on? It may be just simply accepting it and not feeling the emotion of what's going on. So then we move to a different level of acceptance, right? So we're getting real, recognize, elevate, accept. So we can accept even if we're feeling triggered in that moment. We can accept everything that's going on, accept our boss, accept the extra workload. That's just what's happening in the world right now, right? So, and then we learn from what this experience is as we're running it through our mind's eye. We may run a scenario where your boss reacts in a way where he listens to you, or maybe he just storms out of the room and doesn't listen to you. And how would that feel? Well, you can apply the Get Real method. If he walks away and doesn't listen to you, you may have an emotional trigger, and then you can recognize that emotional trigger. You can elevate. How would you want to respond to that? You can accept that he did walk away from you and you were triggered, and then you can learn what? Maybe that shouldn't faze you as much. Or maybe it's phasing you so much that you need to look for a new job, right? The outcomes are always different. So this does take some work, and it takes some time to kind of slow down as we look at these future and past events. Past events can be a little bit easier because they're a little bit more concrete, but they can also be harder because we can be stuck in our own patterns about why we were right about feeling a certain way. And here's the news for you. As right as you were, your mind was just justifying your emotional state. And if it didn't feel good and it didn't feel like the right thing in the right moment and it didn't feel like the best version of yourself, then that's a piece of work for you to do in your self-development, in your personal development. And when we start going in and cleaning up these things, you'd be amazed at how quickly situations, events, interactions with people start to become much more fluid, much more open, much easier, and life itself becomes easier with tools like this and various tools in self-development. So I hope the Get Real method is beneficial for you. Please reach out if you'd like to just have a conversation, jump in the chat, find me on Facebook, Instagram, find my website. Please come and reach out. I'd love to connect with you.